Final Fantasy XIV, The Occult Crescent, is out. People are in it. I'm playing it. But as is usual, people have hot takes. A variety, a smorgasbord, if you will. And it is our sacred duty to react to them. So I asked you, yes, you the community, for your hottest, your spiciest Final Fantasy XIV hot takes. And you delivered, and let's just get right on into this, shall we? First up, we have at The Dark Thunder, who says, hot take, the holidays quests and rewards need to be ramped back up to the old days standard. It may be a limited time event, but it's open to almost every character made by us, main or alt. And the last time I was excited for a holiday event, it was the Tamtara Papa Gruff Dungeon reskin. This one emote or egg umbrella rewards just aren't cutting it. I'm talking a dungeon, or at very least a couple fates, a currency, so repeat players needed. A costume, several holiday appropriate furnishings mount a holiday title above our heads would be nice, and while we are at it, update the decorations every year around towns and residentials. Come on, get bold, live a little, it's the holidays. Yeah, I will admit, used to be rather excited for a lot of the big events that Final Fantasy XIV does. It's been a long time since I could even bother to care. Because most of the time when I check the rewards, it's just here's an emote, or here's a new umbrella, or here's one thing you can put on top of your table in your house. I miss the days when it was, well, an event where you could get a whole bunch of goodies. The gameplay doesn't need to be otherworldly levels of good or anything. It just needs to be a nice little break. Just a fun little celebration of the holidays. I don't think it's a high priority need or anything like that when it comes to the overall state of Final Fantasy XIV. But they were nice to look forward to, and I just don't ever really feel that nowadays. Perhaps the decision was made not to put as much time and focus on events such as that, whereas you could dedicate the resources needed to make the mount, make the new glamour set and all those items, and just put it to regular pieces of content that people are more likely to play and be invested in, which when we think about it, yeah, that is a smart decision to make, sure. But at the same time, where's the haunt, dude? I remember I used to actually get a little bit excited when Christmas time rolled around because of the in-game event that we would have. I couldn't even tell you what the last Christmas event was. And if it was good, then good on them, but I just didn't pay attention because all the other events, and every time I look at them, I just go, I don't want this, and I move on. Like I said before, it's not the biggest need of all time or anything, but it's nice when the events like this, especially for the holidays, the major ones at that, feel as if there's quite a bit of love and care put into them. Though I always do appreciate it when we get the jumping puzzle brought back. I always like that. However, I think it's time we talk about the Occult Crescent. We have at Lens Hunter, who says, Occult Crescent is dog doo-doo, and I'm tired of 14 giving us simply content that takes forever to get stuff done, instead of content that's actually fun. I'm sure they will buff the numbers it takes to level jobs and get coins in the future, but them continuously doing that is a slap in the face for people who jump right into new content on launch, and I'm so over it. It's totally fine if you like OC, but 1,000 bunny treasures, devs, really? Sticking a high number on something doesn't make it fun. I would push back on the notion that the Occult Crescent isn't fun. I quite enjoy the vast majority of the critical engagements, and I really like the concept of phantom jobs. And I do like and appreciate the fact that the Occult Crescent incentivizes you to group up with other players for more efficiency. I like the fact that it feels like an MMORPG again. However, over the last couple of days, I have felt my opinion about the Occult Crescent start to sour a bit, and it's because of quite a few of these reasons. Leveling up my phantom jobs feels like an absolute slog. I have absolutely no desire to farm gold coins. I did it once, it was pretty good, and then I really saw, wow, that took a while to only get this much. Wow, look at how much all the rewards cost. I will be here just grinding regular mobs that have one mechanic for hours upon hours, and I just cannot be asked when there's so many other good games to play, and even other pieces of content in Final Fantasy XIV I would kind of rather prioritize than doing that, especially since, and this is a personal one for me, I don't like the rewards in the Occult Crescent. Not in terms of like what they are, just in terms of the aesthetics of them, not for me at all. I get that the glamour sets are all out of Final Fantasy V. I haven't played Final Fantasy V yet, but even just looking at the glamour sets, none of them are for me. They all look ugly to me. I would never use any of them, or even a single piece from any of them. Except like maybe the wolf helmet, but like even then, each of those pieces is 4K silver, and then I have to upgrade it. It's like, dude. And I talked about this in my first impressions with the Occult Crescent. I said this type of content, in my opinion, lives or dies by how fun and enjoyable the Phantom Job system is, and what it is that you're grinding for. There's nothing in the Occult Crescent outside of the warrior relic weapon that I want that really appeals to me that I would actually use. On top of that, I have yet to find a single Phantom Job that I think is fun. Cannoneer is silly and wacky, and it's the one I like the most so far. The other ones are absolutely boring to me. And I just managed to get the one I've been looking for, Phantom Berserker, because in the Occult Crescent, I play Warrior. So I'm like, oh, this one might actually work for me. So I'm like, okay, I finally managed to get Phantom Berserker. It took me like 4 tries at that boss to finally get it. Cool, I got it. What are its abilities? Well, congratulations, your main signature ability is that you don't get to play the game for 10 seconds. What are we doing, dude? To me at least, it feels like they went with the safest possible options for most of the Phantom Jobs. I'm sure there are some synergies that exist that can be rather cool and interesting, but like across the board, it's just solidly okay, and with how long it takes to grind these things up, the Occult Crescent really kind of grinds to a halt to me the moment you've done all the critical engagements a few times. When that feeling of it being fresh and new wears off and the grind is the only thing that remains, I find myself losing interest. Because, like a lot of Dawntrail, the aesthetics just don't appeal to me. And when a big reason for a lot of the grind that we're doing is, look at all these different armor sets, look at all these different things that you can collect. If none of those appeal to you, then I'm just grinding for the sake of dumping hours into stuff that I've already played before. And I'm leveling Phantom Jobs that, sure, may give me a bit more utility, cool, but my root issue with them being kind of just bleh doesn't go away. This is not to say that I'm just gonna stop doing the Occult Crescent or anything like that, because I still want to do Forked Tower. I still want to do that. I still want to continue the quest line, because I finally got that one critical engagement to spawn that just refused to spawn for me for a couple of days when I was playing. I think the Occult Crescent on the whole is a really good idea, and there's a lot of good in it. It's a beautiful zone. I love seeing everyone run about the place and being able to play with a whole bunch. It's just the execution in a few key locations, namely with the rewards and with the execution of Phantom Jobs for the most part. I can't speak on the Phantom Jobs you get with the acquisition of gold coins or Ranger, because 1, who's doing all that for the gold coins, and then 2, Ranger still does not drop for me, but of the ones I've had, I've played around with most of them, none of them really appeal to me, mechanically. And the one I was most hoping would be fun and interesting, that being Berserker, ended up having a mechanic that very well may be my least favorite of the bunch, which is kind of funny to think about. But yeah, Final Fantasy XIV, like quite a few MMOs, but considering this is a Final Fantasy XIV video, I'm going to talk about it, has a problem in my mind when it comes to just how much it asks you to grind for certain things. Now, I don't want to hear that games from 20 plus years ago had you grind even more. This isn't 20 years ago, it's the year 2025. I don't mind a long grind if what I'm grinding for is fun and interesting, and the tools you give me while I'm grinding are able to vary up and also freshen the gameplay to keep it feeling interesting and fresh. But to me, the Occult Crescent doesn't do that. So while it was new and I'm going through all these different fights and I'm learning these different fights, and I'm still learning these different fights to some degree, now that I've done them all multiple times, it's just doing the same task over and over and over again for really no reward. And I'm largely just putting my Phantom Jobs in a position to where when we get the new zone in 7.5x, which is months and months and months away, I'll be ready to dive in there. But I mean, come on. So I would push back personally, on the idea, like, the more I talk about it, the more I think about it, I think I would push back on the idea that the amount the Occult Crescent asks you to grind is the problem. It feels like the problem, because the tools the game gives you to grind aren't that interesting. But if those tools were more interesting, I don't think I would necessarily mind it. If I had a desire to play around with a bunch of different phantom jobs, I don't think I would necessarily mind how long it takes to grind them, or to get silver and stuff like that, because the gameplay would continue to feel really fresh and new. But right now, yeah, there's a couple of synergies that can exist, but for the most part, the phantom jobs largely are dead in the water for me. I would just never use them. It's like, yeah, some can give me great utility, right? Like Knight, I can really tank a lot with that. Absolutely. Sure. Is an extra 60% mitigation as a GCD particularly that interesting? I would push back not for a system like this. If I got 60% mitigation and it let me do something really cool alongside that, then sure. But I'm playing warrior, I'm basically just getting an extra defensive. Cool? Oh cool, can buff my party by 1%. I mean, like, what are we doing here? It's a bit of a shame because I think the Occult Crescent overall is really cool. But again, it's just those key areas where they just drop the ball for me. Next up we have @Bossy, who says, "You really want spicy? Okay. While I like them in small doses, I don't like how we've been stuck with the Scions for the entire game, especially Alphino, trying to steal the main character role from the player, Estinian with a breath of fresh air, being a job quest NPC who joined us, so why not have the others like Sid from the Dark Knight story? The Scions have had their time, so let's give these interesting job quest NPCs something to do instead of sitting and reacting to your main story quest progress. Have them show up instead of Scions to help Alexandria. Perhaps even have one of them teach Fiend magic again." I quite like this suggestion. And the pushback some people could give would be, well, not everyone's done these job quests before. Well, the same logic applies to Estinian, and he's still gone on to become a fan-favorite character. The dude was originally a job quest NPC for Dragoon in A Realm Reborn, and then he becomes a main character in the MSQ in Heavensward. They've done it before in an interesting and engaging manner. They can just simply do it again, where when you meet these characters in, say, the main story quest, let's take Sid from the Dark Knight story as a prime example of this. Say, if you have played the Dark Knight story, then they alter a few lines of dialogue here and there to indicate that you knew this guy and already have a relationship with that character. But if you have not leveled Dark Knight, then he acts as if you met him for the first time. Just have to alter a few lines of dialogue here and there, but we have great and amazing NPCs with interesting stories, a lot of them being really beloved characters. How cool would it be to have these characters interact with one another? I think there's a ton of potential for interesting stories to be had with a formula like this. Kind of similar to, say, Octopath Traveler, but just done over a longer stretch of time. Where instead of Octopath Traveler, where you're going like from one character to the next, introducing them, adding them to your party, going to another origin story, largely speaking, you can engage in these characters' entire stories through their job quests, and then at the main story quest, have them all come together, or at least a few of them come together, and be like, oh, I know this guy and this guy. We're gonna get to see them interact with each other with voice acting. This should be really cool. I think this is an absolutely phenomenal idea. It would be a great way to utilize different characters than the Scions, whose stories have largely concluded up to now, while also grounding the story in familiarity with characters that quite a few people have known. Next up, we have @Scorpio Warrior 7841, who says, Final Fantasy XIV is so raid-focused in its endgame, it's ridiculous. Party Finder is such a miserable experience. It somehow makes WoW's pre-made groups look like world-first raiders by comparison, and the battle content outside of raiding is extremely shallow. 14's entire endgame should be completely uprooted and reworked from the ground up. Keep almost nothing besides tombstones, and even those probably need a rework because time-gated gearing isn't good. It doesn't feel good to say, oh, I can't progress my character at all for the rest of the week because I'm done with tombstone/raid. 14 has not changed its endgame structure for years at this point. The last time we got an actual meaningful addition to it that stuck with players so much they asked for it to come back was field operations. If Square Enix doesn't decide to invest into Endgame, I'm genuinely convinced the single issue is going to be what's behind the true death blow for this game if Square Enix doesn't decide to focus on the MMO portion of the MMO. Quite a bit of this I do disagree with, and I want to talk about it because I think it's rather interesting. I disagree with the idea of redoing tomestones. I like the fact you can acquire them from multiple different types of content. I like how you can do old and new content and acquire tomestones as well. I like knowing that there is a cap on the most important ones because that means I don't have to grind 24/7 in order not to really fall behind. Even if I'm not doing high-end raiding, people don't like the feeling of being left behind. Now, I wouldn't say gear itself in Final Fantasy XIV is particularly interesting, and honestly, if I have any problem with the gearing in Final Fantasy XIV, it would be one bag space, but besides that, the gear itself is largely boring outside of whatever glamour it provides you, because I think the stats in Final Fantasy XIV are extremely dull. I'm sorry, but deciding if I want a 2.5 or a 2.49 GCD is about as interesting as watching a single pubic hair float away in the wind. I think Final Fantasy XIV, as of right now, has a good formula. I really like field operations, and I like the fact that we're going to get another deep dungeon, and ideally another variant dungeon. Tinker with the reward structures there. My opinion, they only just need to come online early in an expansion's life cycle, but I think the content itself is mostly fine. It's not perfect and has some room to improve, but like I talked about in that previous take about the Occult Crescent, I don't think it's the content there that's the issue, it's the accoutrement surrounding it that is. And a lot of the time, Square Enix going with the most boring, safest answer when it comes to interesting gameplay. How many wild or wacky ideas could you come up with the idea of phantom jobs and overall structure, and then the actual execution of quite a few of them are rather mundane and uninteresting, at least to me. The critical engagements themselves are largely really fun. Screw that fish bro though. Yeah, the Mind Flayer dude, I hate him. I like the Shock Boy. Shock Boy's cool. Baldur's Gate Ceramorphosis jabroni though can rot in a ditch somewhere. No matter how fun and interesting the content is, if you're asked to replay it ad nauseum over and over and over and over and over and over again, and the game doesn't give you sufficient tools to make replaying that stuff interesting and fun, it will get old. It will get stale. Also, I will push back on the idea that WoW pugs are better than Final Fantasy XIV pugs. I have tried to do new content in WoW on day one. It is the most miserable experience possible. And I've never had issues like I have in WoW in Final Fantasy XIV. Sometimes I may get a group that wipes a couple of times, but it's never that bad as when I did Undermine day one. I think it's easy to point at a lot of the actual structures of content in Final Fantasy XIV as the proverbial punching bag for the game's perceived issues and stuff like that, but I think the issues lie a little bit deeper beneath the surface than that, and stems more from Square Enix's desire not to take too many risks when it comes to the gameplay. When it comes to the things that you are able to do in the game, they try not to take too many risks when it comes to that, and they played way too safe far too often. Yoshi P even talked about this when it comes to fight design going into Dawntrail, and I think the actual fight design we have gotten in Dawntrail has been one of Dawntrail's best elements. But there's other elements to this game that I feel still play it way too safe and way too close to the chest. Chemist, to me, in the Occult Crescent is a prime example of this. What a cool concept for a phantom job, being able to utilize potions in different mixtures, but the way that it's executed is so boring, dude. You just buy potions for a full heal, or to restore your MP, you have a button for a revive, or you can use an elixir. It's like, why not take it a step further and allow players to combine different reagents you can find in the Occult Crescent to mix different potions for different effects. Kind of similar in style to, say, the magic system of Final Fantasy XV. Obviously not to that scale or anything, but just give some version of that. But instead we get, here's a full heal. Yes, is it effective in combat? Yeah, sure. But is it as cool or as memorable as it should be? And in my opinion, no. I like the gearing structure of Final Fantasy XIV. I like the content Final Fantasy XIV largely adds to the game. Not all of it is particularly great or stellar, but for the the most part, I think it's interesting at least. My issue is on the details. Sometimes the aesthetic just doesn't line up with what I personally like. That's just kind of the nature of the beast. Not everything's going to be for me, and that's fine, right? I'm sure there's quite a few people that like the stuff you can get in the Occult Crescent. But for me, the deeper issue isn't how you get gear, it's the gear itself being rather stale and boring and safe. Like in the Occult Crescent with the Phantom jobs. They're kind of boring and stale and safe. I like the idea of acquiring gear that benefits you directly in that piece of content, like you can get in the Occult Crescent. Not saying the Occult Crescent is the one that pioneered this idea, I'm just saying I like the idea that you can do it there. But, with how much they ask you to grind, with how much I am disliking grinding in the Occult Crescent, that's not a good mixture. You see what I mean? I think with that, I'll call the video there for the day. Thank you all for tuning in. My pleasure for making the video. If you enjoyed it, please leave a like and subscribe. It'd really help the channel out and help support future content, and I greatly appreciate it. Stay safe, have a great day, go play some video games if you can. Leave a comment down below with your own hot take about Final Fantasy XIV, Dawntrail 7.2.5. What you think about Hildebrand? What did you think about the Mamulja dailies? What did you think about the Occult Crescent? I would love to hear your thoughts, hear your opinions, and to hear your perspectives. And I may react to them in a future video. Yeah? So bring me your best. Thank you all for tuning in. Stay safe, have a great day, and I'll see you all next time. Bye-bye, everybody. Until we meet again.